All right, so last couple meetings and trainings, we've been talking about the perfect escrow. We talked about getting more listings. We've spoken about kind of the checklists of everything, of going through checklists and things about like really the perfect escrow. And so we're going to be kind of continuing that. And a couple of things that we threw in there last week were some of the MetroList tool, the Zip Forms tools and stuff, because I've been sharing with my new assistants some real secrets about getting listings really and filling out listing paperwork and buying paperwork super quick for offers and things. So that was the templates that I'm not sure. Some people actually, they weren't here that said, let's do the templates, but I want to share a couple of other things first and just kind of continuing going through that perfect escrow and some tips that I basically do. This is, if you guys want, that is some of my other contact information if you want to take a shot of that, but it's everything that I've got on my social media. So if you want to follow on Instagram or any of other stuff that we do with YouTube as well, there's a zillion different classes there on YouTube that you guys are welcome to go watch. It's just All In with Eric Hatch for those people who are joining us for the first time, because I see a few new faces. So I wanted to share that so you guys can actually go to there. We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. So make sure that you guys always continue to train. I don't know that those guys who went over and jumped into and went to our summit, which was absolutely amazing up in Reno. I feel, and I've shared this before too, that Tom Ferry really states that guys, when you guys are doing training and keeping on things, when you go to these seminars, whether it's our local education, whatever it is at PCAR, NCAR, wherever facility you go get trained, we basically have it's like 20 to 30% more income is what they say, or because you actually get so much more excited, you get pumped up, you actually get to learn things, and you go implement them in your business and you get it done. And so it's really exciting to do that. So I encourage you guys to always learn, because I know that they say if you stop learning, you stop earning. And it's so critical and true, because in this industry and business, we have to be doing so much more than we had been doing even last year or the year before, because you just have to keep learning. And I know sometimes it gets a little crazy of how much we have to learn and keep up, but we just have to. You just have to. And so it kind of encourages me to continue. And that's why I like doing training like this, because what it does is allows me to go out, find all the new stuff, and then come back and then present it to you guys as well. So today we're going to talk about really the clear communication, getting involved in the transaction, being on the same page. I know we talked about checklists last week, but I wanted to extend a little bit on that, because guys, I'm telling you, I've got 60-year-old sellers right now that are completely they don't even understand kind of how even selling a house even works. So when you guys go into a presentation, a buyer presentation, a listing presentation, even though they might be 70, 80 years old, you ask them, how long have you lived in the home? Is this the first sale? How much business have you done in your real estate, in your career, or in your lifetime? And if they tell you, hey, this is the very first house, we've lived here for 42 years and we've never sold a house before, then you have to hold their hand a little bit more and understand. If they say, oh yeah, Eric, I do this all the time, I still don't take that for granted. If they tell me they do it all the time and they sell tons of homes all the time, I still like to keep that same communication. And that's what we're going to share today, because it's important to understand that when they literally say, well, how do I get my money? What do I do with my keys? How do I, what's next? Did we just extend escrow because I just got, a request to repair? So it's about kind of communicating with them. I'm going to share some ideas and kind of things that we do, because you guys, we've actually just totally is what we're sharing about all these new videos. So what we're doing is we're going into all these drip email campaigns, and we're dropping videos in there with of what to do next and kind of coming soon, and what just kind of keeping them up to speed. If those who missed last week, I use the Ametry by Folio, which is a calendaring, but you can certainly do a timeline on Gmail as well. But you guys remember that that's Ametry. But it tells you when all the inspections, but people still don't get in there and they still don't read it. So the last thing you want to do is show up on an inspection that you forgot to tell the seller, the buyer, or the other agent, or they show up at a door. Literally, we showed up at a door one time, knocked on the door, and they didn't expect us because that agent never told them that we were coming. So that's really kind of that's embarrassing, hard. You got all your inspectors there, you got your buyer there. It's very uncomfortable. So it's about just just completely just overdoing it. I mean, just this morning, I've already told them it's already on Ametry, and there she goes. Yep, we're going to leave the gate open. We'll be there for, thank you for the reminder. I just said, good morning, friendly reminder that we have a home inspection tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. If you want to make it easier, have the gate open. So things like that, you just got to stay on it. And if it's in my calendar, in my Gmail or Ametry, then I can see it coming because it actually reminds you, and it kind of reminds you even a day or 2 days early, even on your Gmail calendar, to let them know. And they're getting that same reminder, but it's just important to let that know, because the less headaches that you have to deal with in a transaction with buying and selling is absolutely the best. I added this one in. So those who missed our checklist last week that want to see the buyer and seller checklist, click on that. That goes to our Google Drive, or not click, but take a picture of it. But that goes to our Google Drive, what actually has my complete checklist that we did. And those people asked me, hey, who created this? Where'd this come from? And it's real simple. I mean, some of them are really stupid where it says grab a folder and put your copy of your printout of your MLS or whatever into it. But it's just so easy. So then what I can do is I can just, eventually, if you guys have an assistant, you just kind of go, here's the assistant, and then take that over. Here's your checklist, make it super simple so they understand kind of what's kind of going on. But there's my checklist if you guys want to cruise and check like that out. I'm always kind of a big fan of trying to get our timeline out before the other TC or the other agent gets our timeline. And so I want to do that because there's times, if you guys are, those are brand new, which I believe we have a couple brand spanking new agents on here today as well. If you count out the timelines for a 30-day escrow and it actually lands on a Saturday, you could talk to the other agent and say, what would you like to do? Or talk to your seller, your buyer, whichever you represent, and then maybe try to benefit whatever side you are on. Because if I have a buyer and it lands on Saturday, technically by law, it actually goes to Monday. And if Monday's a holiday, it technically goes to Tuesday for the closing. But maybe you have a buyer that says, look, I work 9 to 5 every single day, and I would love to move in on that weekend. So then we would shoot and say, okay, well, maybe it lands on a Saturday. Let's see if we could get the seller to close on a Friday that we'll be able to then close. Then they can move, and then you can have the weekend to move in. So those are kind of some things that you want to look at, but it absolutely does move to the following day. So it's always nice to have that. I literally had one time with an agent here local that I said, hey, I called them up because I haven't heard anything. They were the seller, and I go, hey, just want to let you know that our buyer is signing loan docs on tomorrow. So are we set to go for like a Friday close? And on their board, they actually thought it was closing like 2 weeks later. So he had to call his seller and tell his seller that, oops, sorry, I've made a mistake. We're actually closing Friday, not in 2 weeks. Now, maybe that might be a little bit of a problem for some. It would be a giant problem for some. So, keep that in mind of just letting them know when that's all happening. I'm a big fan too. We discussed about when the earnest money deposit comes in and I represent the seller, I absolutely send an email right out. I love when you have your escrow officers send that to you, and I just hand that and I just forward that over and let them know that we are good to go on that as well. So important for those who are brand new is that literally there was one time years and years ago that I literally let everybody else know that we were in contract except the lender. About 3 days later, I just had this heart attack that I forgot that I didn't let the lender know that we were in contract with the buyer. Now that just put us 3 days behind. So you want to make sure on your time and your checklist is you give all the mortgage information, make sure everybody has the information. The lender has the mortgage has the lender, and you let your mortgage people or your escrow officer and stuff know the email, the phone number of all of your buyer or whoever the seller is, so they can reach out and contact them immediately is what it is. So this is what I want you guys to do on some little assignments. If you want, you can create some emails. If you want to do a little video, I'd like you guys to create these videos of like what's next videos. So let's say Kimberly, I get Kimberly in escrow. Kimberly, congratulations. We're in escrow. This is great. Now I can have a little conversation with her right now and say, okay, here's the next steps. Next steps is we need to get your deposit in. Next steps so that we need to get some inspections that we need to get done. And these are the 3 or 4 inspections that we recommend. Have a conversation, but then you also follow up with a video that says, hey, congratulations, we are in escrow. And this is and you can pre-record these, make them really generic and say, these are our next steps and looking forward to a smooth escrow. So you can kind of put these of what next steps. So if you do have a buyer like this 60-something-year-old person who's never sold a house before and doesn't really understand things on that, it's our job to be able to educate them. So then when you have, this is what's coming next, then you actually have after our inspections. I got another video that says after our inspections, that what's next. Now we're going to be compiling everything. And I always try to let them know that we're looking for safety and health issues that we're going to ask for. We're not asking them to paint the pink room white. We're not asking them to do, pave the driveway because it's gravel. We're looking for safety and health issues. And then I show them some examples. So everything is kind of, recording my screen. If you guys have, some seller buyer, I think we have some title reps on
I got
today.
a question.
We might have a seller or buyer guide for you. So if you know that they're a brand new buyer, first-time home buyer, I have first-time home buyer guides. I have books that we actually have put together for sellers and buyers that you want to provide that information. So, and I actually, to get listings into buyers, you want to share that information up front. This is like 60-something pages and it rotates. It's something that I get, and I get a spring one, a winter one, and a fall one. So, and the news, and it comes with all sorts of different articles and different stuff to help educate them of kind of what things and what they're doing. So this is important too for those who are brand new. If you get an offer on the table or you present an offer, then you need to make sure what on the RP and the addendums that you figure out who orders what. And so like you literally, most of the time the seller will take care of a septic system in our community. But what if you got an offer that didn't come in with the septic inspection? They kind of forgot it. I've done that before on one time as well. And I'll kind of give you an idea how that kind of works. But if you get an offer or you present an offer and there's no septic on there, and I get an offer, I'll call the agent and go, did you forget to do that? Because I know sellers generally, we need a septic inspection, and generally the sellers will pay for it. So I want to make sure that you go through the contract and you see what your client is responsible for and make sure that it's ordered for them. Those who also just, I've got my preferred vendors. I like my pest inspectors. I like my home inspectors, but I don't want to assume and say, hey, Rose, just want to let you know, I'll order all your inspections for you. Then Rose, what if their inspector, they had their own inspector they wanted to use? So generally, to be safer, you guys should be giving like up to 3 inspectors. So make sure that you have some kind of book that you guys can have or some kind of printout. So I've got my preferred vendor list that I actually share with them and to say, hey, Rose, just want to check in with you. We're going to need to get a home inspection. Are you familiar what home inspections are and what they entail? And if she goes, absolutely not, I have no idea, or yes, I do, then I will share a little bit about, I've got 3 or 4 people, or do you have somebody that a family member's used, or somebody that you would like to recommend? Because I've got some people, but let me know. And if they say, nope, Eric, I'm going to entrust whatever the 3 or 4 people that you want to do, you just pick which one's going to be the best for me. I said, great. I like to do that either on a phone call, a Zoom call, something. So then, we have some kind of recorded, recorded that, hey, remember that you told me to use this person, or you told me that it would be great. But I like to give them at least 3 or 4 choices. There is an email that we actually have sent out. It's got a video, says, hey, here's what's coming next. Here's our people that we prefer. Please let me know which company that you would like to use. So now I have a document that I emailed them. I got 3 pests, 3 home inspectors. If it was a pool, and I got some other people in there as well. And then that way they go, Eric, they'll type back whatever you want to use. That's great. So now I have at least some written documentation that they allowed me to kind of choose. And I just go with my preferred person. And then I order those inspections. Couple things that I want to do. Down on the bottom, guys, on the home and well, if you guys make sure you don't have your well inspector. And that's why it's important to coordinate with the other agent, because like tomorrow we have a home inspection, but the well and septic happening on Tuesday, which is the same day. That's totally fine. You just need to make sure you understand that the home inspector needs to show water signs and turn showers on and turn faucets on. So if you got the well going at the same time and they're draining the water out and they turn your water off, then you're not going to have that. Just onto the pro tip too, if you guys have a well, make sure you tell them that by the way, it's going to be 4 hours. Make sure you tell them that unfortunately they're going to be spilling the water all over your property, of just kind of draining it, and it's going to be wasting. Because I've gotten horrible calls, from water people saying, I can't believe they're wasting all my water for a 4-hour test. So I always like to tell them and kind of give them an expectation of what's going to happen to that, and make sure that they get up earlier, make sure they take showers, because you don't want to get a call and say, Eric, I see the well people are here and I need to get to work, and when can I take a shower? I don't like those phone calls. So I tell them, make sure you shower, make sure you save some water. I know you got pets, you got animals on a farm, make sure you save some water. If you need to do that, please do so. So that's just a little tip right there that you want to do. And notify all parties. And then also just another pro tip on this is that it's when you actually, if you represent the seller and you have a buyer doing all these inspections, it's come back a couple times in the past where I've either, in the future, I've lost maybe if that client stays locally. And if I don't show interest, like if I just let the other agent show up to all the inspections and I don't come, I've literally probably one time or maybe twice had somebody go, Eric, wasn't even here during all the inspections, and he didn't even, so then they went with a different agent, maybe down the road when they sold in a different way. So it's always really important for me to either tell them that, hey, I'm not coming, or I stop by for a little visit. If I know my sellers are going to be home, I will stop by and say, just, check on them. How's everything going? Doing great. Fine. Perfect. Thank you very much. And I leave, just because it just needs to show that you are, it's important to them to see your face sometimes when you're having these inspections. So I would make sure that you kind of put that in play there. My next slide here, guys, is that, there's so many times where I get a call from an agent asking me a question, and they'll say, Eric, I have a problem with the transaction. What should I do? And, don't panic your client until you have a solution prepared and how you're going to work that out. There's so many times that there's, in our transactions, you guys, we have fires that we have to put out all the time. And I always share that if we didn't have problems to solve, we really wouldn't have a job. So we're putting fires out all the time. And it's important to realize that you don't have to panic your client all the time. And I don't have an example straight off hand, but there was a couple of ones that we literally, it would have panicked my seller super bad, or my buyer, if they knew what was kind of going on behind the scenes, or if the other agent called up and says, hey, we have a loan problem. What about this? We got to take care of this. We come up with a solution, and there's probably about 60% of the time we come up with a solution. The agent and I, we solve the solution before we don't even have to tell the client that we even had a problem. So there's so many times where if you hear that, hey, we're not going to close, something's a problem, don't call your client and tell them we have a problem. We have an issue, and then I'll get back to you and let you know what we're going to do. If you do that, then it's kind of like now they're panicking for like a day or a couple hours before you call them back. So even if it's something I realize, okay, we have a situation, I could not resolve it. Here's my 3 ways I'm going to resolve it. But now I need to get a buy-in with my client of which direction that we want to go. So then when I call up and I say, Rose, we have a little bit of a concern here, but I think we can get around it by here's my 3 solutions that I feel that will work, that I've done in the past 28 years. Which one do you think that would best bet for you if there's money involved or whatever it is? Then we come up with a solution. So now we just got off the phone with Rose that we have a little solution. Eric's already solving it. I can go back to my day, and I have a little bit of concern, but I'm not panicking about it. So it's really important. Just don't call your client if you instantly have an issue. Just wait, let it resolve itself. Wait for even 24 hours to figure out some kind of solution. And it generally does resolve itself without having to tell them or panic them. So real critical, important on that. So those who are new, I do all my disclosures and stuff kind of like on video. I record it. I jump on there and go, guys, I'm going to go over the disclosures with you. And if, I say, if you've got any concerns or any questions, throw down the home inspection in there and say, because there are like 70 pages, and those home inspections look super crazy to individual people. They just, if you have a buyer that has not had a home inspection before, prep your sellers and tell them, guys, I don't really want you there during the home inspection, because they nitpick, they'll poke, they'll probe, they'll turn your house upside down. And if you're sitting there watching that, especially generally, it just happens to be like a more concerned elderly couple that is sitting there watching their house get torn apart by someone in their opinion, which we know that they're not really destroying their home, but they just get so upset. They'll call me that they poked holes in my house. Well, that's because it's dry rot. They have to poke holes in your house. So I'm letting them know that that's about to happen to them. So I always like to have them, gone and not being there. I always like to let them know and understand that the pest companies, they're going to be giving us a report that's going to be way higher than I can get my contractors to do. So I'm kind of sharing things and understanding what's kind of the process of the negative things. There's a piece of paper that Century 21 Housing, it's 88 turbulences of a transaction that could happen. And so sometimes I joke and give that to my buyer and say, look, we're on number 77, and this is the turbulence that we have an issue with. But just kind of sharing that. But I love doing these videos with the disclosures. And the reason why I do that is because now I have most of them are about 4 to 8 minutes long. Then now I've gone over my disclosures and I can go back to them if they say, hey, you forgot to disclose, or you didn't tell me something. And I went, well, there's the disclosures. I actually went through it with you. And then I actually DocuSign it to them as well. But I go through home inspections. I kind of go through and guys, this is kind of typically what on our home inspection of what people are kind of looking for. By the way, the home inspector always says that the sinks are slow. By the way, that they always say that slopes, there's just things that there's all in their boilerplate. Because if you get a buyer that just reads that home inspection before you can kind of go over it with them, they just sometimes might panic and just want to cancel escrow right away because they feel that the house is falling down, when in truth, it's the normal house inspection of a 1960s house. And that's just what we're going to find with different polarities and different no GFCIs and stuff. And they're going to think the house is going to catch on fire. And it's just kind of crazy. So you want to like diffuse that situation by recording that, going over it and says, yeah, this is what we generally probably could, that most buyers would probably request, and start putting together that list for them. And I jot it down and make it nice and easy for that request of an RR, or guys that are new. I'm a big fan of making sure you give all the inspections. I give, as soon as I get the home inspection, if I'm representing the buyer, I send it over to the listing agent that day, send it over that day, and just stay. Because I don't want to be on the other side always wondering, my seller's going, can we get the inspections, please? When can we get the inspections? When do we get the inspections? And it's like, I'm asking for them, and I'm not getting them from them yet, but I'm sure we're going to come, and then we'll get them eventually. So just be on the other side, always be just right on it and be really quick. And so in that request to repairs, I'll break it down really super simple and say items to be repaired from the home inspection dated blah blah blah, and I'll put page 34, item 2, and I'll put a little brief description, page 36, page 38, page 42, and I kind of put it all in a nice little thing. So then the other seller can see it super easy when I'm and it's just real simple. And I include all of those all the reports. I do send all the reports one more time at the very end in a big email so they can have it all straight over on that too. All right.
Eric,
Stop me
can you
if
hear me?
guys have any questions, because I got a few more slides here. Let's see, knowing your client, educating them.
Can you hear me,
I
Eric?
always like to let them know. I want them to know about their closing disclosure, letting them know, because they're always going to wonder, hey, what's next? We're getting close. We're already past. Because guys, if you're in a 60-day escrow and you get to day like 40 and you're done, you have like literally 20 to 30 more days of just complete silence. So you better tell your client that, by the way, we just finished our request to repair, and I think we have one that's closing like in 2 weeks, and we're already done with our request to repair. And now there's really nothing to do. It's all, the seller. So I just let them know, hey guys, just want to let you know, closing disclosure is that's our next thing that we're actually looking for. I mean, actually, and also insurance. Did you actually get your insurance tied up? Are we good there? Can you get that over? Make sure that's done. So just to kind of keep in communication with them, because you will disappear. There'll be 3 or 4 days in a row that you don't really need to talk to them about it. But if you go 3 or 4 days, then they're wondering if there's any, what else is going on. So make sure you're just staying completely on top of what's kind of happening. And then I like the last one here on the bottom. Make sure that you tell your title that that they're not local. If you have a closing date on Friday, and then on Wednesday, your title company calls and says, hey, just want to let you know, let's get your buyer in to sign, or let's get your seller in to sign, and say, yeah, my seller doesn't live here. They live in, New York. And then all of a sudden that's like, oh, wow, we're not closing on Friday, because you're going to need days of FedExing back and forth to be able to get to that information back. So weeks before we close, I'm telling my title officer, hey, just want you to know the seller lives in this state. Hey, just want to let you know that the buyer is here. Or, hey, just want to let you know the buyer just informed me that the husband is on a job in Nebraska, out on some prairie somewhere that when he can't get to this, or hey, want you to know that my other seller is out of the country right now and he is in Australia, I think is where he went. And so we had to find a U.S. embassy in Australia where he had to go get notarized. So these are all just things that over experience, those who are new will actually realize that you just kind of want to watch that. If you have any questions at all and go, you're in Australia, call your escrow officer and go, hey, he's in Australia. What are we supposed to do here? I don't know what to do. And then they'll tell you, hey, this is what you got to do on that. So just knowing and understanding, don't get to the last day and wondering, hey, when are people signing? How are people signing? I tend to generally go to my signings if you possibly can. Please tell your escrow officer, because we did that this morning. Just say, let me know when they're going to be. Here's my openings. If you have a time, I love to be there because it's important. And then you get the people that you show up and they go, wow, I didn't know you. I've never had my agent show up. And sometimes I've had my lender and myself show up to our first-time home buyers. And that's really nice because we can have those conversations. A pro tip here, though, is make sure that you give the estimated seller net sheet, the buyer sheet, whatever it is, make sure you get that to them 2 or 3 days before they go in to sign. You will get a panic phone call at 7 p.m. at night that from your buyer who's signing the loan docs with a mobile notary out of state somewhere, and they're getting a call at 7 p.m. saying, what is this? What is this? And most of the time that the what is this stuff is stuff from the title company that you're going, I have no idea what that is. Or, wow, that's kind of interesting. Now, when you see it a lot, you'll understand. But I always love to give them way before, 2-3 days ahead. And just say, Kimberly, I just wanted to send over to this that you got your signing coming up at 4 o'clock with a mobile notary or 7 p.m. And I wanted to make sure that you had an ample time to review this document. So if you had any questions on it, we can actually contact the title company. See how I just kind of pushed that over to the title company and be able to add, and they can answer that. So if it's 7 p.m., we won't be able to reach them. So I'm very blessed to have both of my 2 favorite title representatives cell numbers, and I have called them at 7 p.m. at night, and they've had, taken calls, which is nice. So, just again, avoid those problems, avoid that on a perfect escrow, and have it all kind of lined up and set up. Okay. And what's next? Closing date. And people always like, even today, when you get the request to repair, they go, does this delay closing? Does this delay closing? No, it's not delaying closing. The request to repair, it doesn't change that date. We're good to close. So that was just from this morning, having that conversation too. All right. You guys can compile something like this. 1 week before closing, transfer utilities, insurance, things to remember. So I send them a bunch of stuff that's happening. You'll have a moving guide, which I thought was nice. There's an app that we actually have, which is kind of fun. What are, so I have this email right here, and I might, if I know that it's suburban, when we send this email out, I'll go backspace. I'll take out everything other than suburban, or I'll take out, I know that you're on, the what water district. So I'll take out the Placer County or Nevada County. So it doesn't confuse them. Oh, which one am I? Eric just sent me 2 of them. Which one do I do? So, that's just something that I have all of it built in, and then we can just erase it as we go. Okay. All right. Do we have a question there, Kimberly? All right. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I don't
think you can hear me.
Everybody else put it in chat. Oh, I got lots of chats. Sorry, guys. I'll go read those. I just get straight up. So Kimberly, if you want to put weird. Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me
now? Let's see, Kimberly. All right, Kimberly has a question. I have an 82-year-old who would love that, but maybe follow up with a text. Yep, they could do a text, but Kimberly, I don't know. Okay, that's it. What is your question in here? I can hear you. Can you see if he can hear you? I can hear you too. Maybe raise your hand, start yelling. Yay. My question is, I don't have the question yet. Is it coming?
Oh,
all right, type up the question.
Shoot. That's all right.
All right. Yes, shoot. Yes, never mind. Okay, good. All right, if you get that, that's all right. No worries. All right. It was like, I don't know if you there was an interesting, lovely one on tour yesterday that the person was chatting all sorts about her paint colors and didn't realize that she wasn't muted. So it's probably better that you don't have communication sometimes. All All right, I will setting that down. All right, so giving them stuff like this is important, guys. Those who have insurance issues and concerns, make sure that you are giving your insurance, people way ahead. I'm doing it like I'll get into contract even before contract. I'm giving my people insurance names and numbers to be able to contact, because I've had contracts fall out because of their insurance, and some of them are like super fast, like 2-3 days into it, and they're out because they didn't realize their insurance was going to be so high. So it's really critical, on that too. And make sure if your buyers are aware, if you're in any HOA, anywhere near an HOA, and it's like Lake of the Pines, like Wildwood, whatever it is, and make sure they're aware that that's going to bring down their buyer, their qualification a little bit on that. Buyer walkthroughs, rules, ins and outs. Can a buyer hold up escrow if they found stuff on a walkthrough? So if they come to the walkthrough and this is kind of a little bit of my pet peeve a little bit, is that sometimes you have a seller or a buyer that says, I want that seller completely 100% out of this house before I do my buyer walkthrough. Nowhere in the contract does it say, Mr. Buyer, that the seller has to be completely out of the house. This kind of happens a little bit more with tenants. If you have I shouldn't really be rude. Sometimes sellers are that too, but if they're just really super messy, whether the tenant or their owner, that can be a little bit concerning to a buyer, that if we walk in 2 days before a close of escrow and it's still the same huge mess, and they're like, how are these people even going to move out? So I've had somebody the other day put the personal property still needs to be removed. That was kind of nice, because the seller is still moving. They stayed up till 5 a.m. that morning, from the day it was supposed to close. They were 14 hours late of moving out of the house, and it was a poor little elderly couple that was moving. But and so you always want to kind of stay on top of that and say, hey, where are you going? But there's nowhere in the rules that says that the seller has to be completely out. So I tell the people, I said, look, we're going to do our buyer walkthrough, but please expect the house is going to be destroyed. It's going to be a mess, because they're in the middle of moving. It's supposed to be. We want to see the house that way. We don't want to get there and actually have the house completely, not even look like anybody's even moved anything. So the buyer walkthrough, if they technically have something that you go there and there's a problem, there's a huge hole that's in a wall that was behind a credenza or something, and we didn't see it, you put that on there. We want to get fixed. But technically, guys, the rules by California CAR is that you can't hold up an escrow. So if you tell them, hey, I'm not closing, really, from talking to legal counsel there, that the buyer is the one holding up the close. So it's a little interesting. I've had a couple houses that we've ended up having to close escrow only because the loan docs were going to expire and there was a few little issues, and it goes a long ways. I had somebody that showed up, they came to their house and the yard was pretty nasty and the house wasn't really cleaned. And I had my landscapers over there that day. I paid $50 for them to go and mow the grass. And that seller or the buyer is so happy. She's so delightful. And then I said, look, you're going to be doing some remodeling, because I know the house is kind of filthy, but you're doing the remodeling. Let's wait till the end, and I'll send my gal over there for $100, and she'll do a really nice light dusting and cleaning. So maybe the lady will forget. Maybe she won't actually even remember. Maybe she says, oh, don't worry about it, Eric, I got it covered. But at least that day when she moved into her house, the house wasn't super clean. The yard was a mess, and we took care of it. And now she's a happy customer, and it was well worth $50. Now I could have called up the other agent and said, I need some assistance, I need some help, and yelled and screamed. But you know what? Just bust it out and get it done. You can certainly call them up and say, hey, let's get that done. But if you get pushback, just do it. So walkthroughs are important. I've done some walkthroughs on a lot of them on a FaceTime where I'm walking through the property. There was one that wanted to do a walkthrough on FaceTime on Mother's Day of all times. I think I actually went on Mother's Day and did it. And I said, you know what? I'm not doing it, because there was like $10,000 worth of furnishings that was actually included. And I said, I'm not doing it. You're going to be there, because I'm not going to take responsibility if we miss something on the furnishing. So things are a little bit different on that. Your avids, you guys are going to love doing your agent visuals. Just raise a hand, Kimberly. Do you have to do agent visuals in Nevada? Agent visual disclosure? Oh, then you can just not listen here. Well, that's beautiful California. So basically in California, we have to go through and we have to do a visual disclosure and tell everybody what, what we see in the property. And basically you're like, kind of finding the defects or finding things that you, see that are problems like this kitchen. So, or a hanging electrical, or issues with this, or damaged wall, or a patch in the ceiling, in the bedroom. Or I always say no screen. I got burned a couple times where I didn't put screens, and all of a sudden they went, Eric, there's half the screens, and the seller never mentioned there weren't any screens on the property. So I put screen in bedroom not missing, screen torn over here, weather stripping bad, weather stripping missing. So you're putting things, but you have to be really, really careful when you guys send this to your buyer and seller. This happens almost frequently, that when you send that to them and you don't let them know what the agent visual is, they freak out because they think that, am I supposed to fix all these? Am I supposed to, repair all this? Is ridiculous. They kind of tore apart. Now, I'm not a real super detailed kind of avid person, but there are some agents out there that write like books and books and books about every single little scratch. I mean, there's wear and tear on a house that you don't have to detail everything, but it's important though that it's a disclosure. Now, the interesting thing on this one on via, there's times where I threw in something on my Avid that my seller told me that kind of, they were a little bit more vague, I think, on their TDS SPQ, on their transfer disclosure statement. I threw that in there too, but I think legal counsel told me that it's even because I put something on my Avid that says, hey, this room may not be permitted, and the buyer and the seller did not disclose that, it does not constitute as I guess, a legal disclosure. Keep in mind the Avids, at least in California, if you don't jump on those right away and you provide that to them after they release contingencies, or a day. I just got one from another agent like 2 days before close of escrow. I've gotten them like a day after close of escrow that says, please sign this. That technically opens up another, I think it's 5 days. Don't quote me, but I think it's like 5 days of investigation period that a buyer gets something new, of a new detailed disclosure. They actually now have more time to actually back out of the contract. So you don't want to get a release the contract or release the contingencies, and then they actually see your Avid and they go, hey, I don't want this house anymore. And they use that to get out. And then all of a sudden you have to tell your seller that, sorry, I was super late. So how I basically do this, I think I shared this a couple of weeks ago, is that when I go to take pictures of the home that I'm listing, I'm actually do my pictures first. I do my video next, of like my little video shots. And then I do my actual video, like mic'd up video of like telling about the house. And then I walk through the house. I take pictures of every single thing that I have in an Avid. And then I take that and I come back to the office, and then we blast out our Avid here and have that done. So that is enough on Avids. All right. I think that was it. All right. That was, yep, that's all I've got with that. So I wanted to, any questions? I know I took a few extra minutes on that. So maybe we do the transaction templates later and do it another week, probably would be wise. But so maybe we'll do that, guys. We'll do the templates next, the transaction templates into next week, and we'll show you kind of what I do on my templates and how you kind of can speed through your listings and speed through. And I can get an offer written in like 6 minutes, and you just be done. And I'll show you kind of how we do that. Any questions on any of this, like the perfect escrow / checklist that we've been working on for the last 2 or 3 weeks? Any chats if you guys want to unmute? Oh, Kimberly, here we go. Says, I had a client that client think the seller should have to pay her to see the inspections. I had to point out they had the right to. That's a good point. Because, that's why I always like, if I represent the seller, I'm always asking for my inspections straight up super fast. And I want them, because if they back out, there's a likelihood you may not get those, even though in per contract, it's required that they actually give those to you. But I've had people who says, look, I bought those. I'm not sharing them with the seller, sorry, I'm quitting, I'm out. And it's like, wait, that's, so somewhere you would have to have a conversation and say, nope, those are. So if you have those now, I guess what you could do there is, Kimberly, if all of a sudden the buyer says, I forbid you to give those to the other side, then it's kind of like, then you probably want to talk to your broker and say, what should I do here? Because per contract, I'm supposed to send them. Or if you get it right away, and sometimes I've had this before, and I've got them right away, and a week later they canceled, I've already sent that inspection to the other agent. It says, sorry, I already sent it to them because legally we need to. Okay, fine, thank you. So, just, I don't want to have that conversation. So that's good. All right, so that bit.ly link right there. So I will go with that one at the very end. If you go with this one, that was my old school. This is my bit.ly link. Whoops. take a picture of this one right there. It takes me to the bit.ly link. So before I had you guys like have to write it down, the bit.ly link all in with there attached, but that actually QR code is the one that you guys just want to go, which takes you right into my drive, which all those checklists and everything's in there too. Good question. You're welcome. All right. I'm gonna go see who else do we have down here. I don't get to see everyone. So Jessica Fitz, who's in the house, like it. We're already wearing sweaters again and jackets. I see, because it's crazy, huh? It's like the weather's changing. My pool went to 70 degrees. So
we're doing
right.
Marvel Day in the office.
Look, we got a lot of people down here. Alma, welcome. Glenn, welcome. Love that Merced office. All right. So let's see. Do you recommend home inspector? I do. You know, I like my home inspector. I let them choose. I give them 3 names. I put my favorite home inspector on the top of the list. And so I just put that on the top and I go, hey, here's some 3 home inspectors. Please give them a call. If you have any questions, let me know who you want to use. And I say it that way. And then they go, well, Eric, I don't really know anybody. So you want to just choose for me? Great. I'll put how about the first one? He's my main guy right there on the top. But if you certainly want to reach out to him and chat with him, please do. Okay. A Marvel Day at the office. Okay. I'll see you today at 4 o'clock. Hopefully you're there, Jess. All right. All right. Question. Can you please, we had a question. Can you please, oh, maybe I've got you guys all totally muted. Do I have you guys completely muted? Team Taylor. Well, that's real interesting.
Yeah.
Have to unmute. Yeah. So I see that your microphone's off, Team Taylor, but I don't, my
Can you hear
volume's
us?
all the way up.
Test
I
one,
wonder if I
test
hit
two.
some weird little feature. Stop video
I can
chat,
hear everybody
stop
else,
make host,
but he can't
rename.
hear us.
We can
We
hear
hear
you.
I'll just make you the host, Team Taylor. And now you can talk. How about that?
Okay. Hi.
All right. So Team Taylor,
Yeah,
you're the
funny.
host.
We are.
Did it,
We're joining us
allow you
guests
to-
today. Thanks for having us.
To say anything? Because
Can you hear us?
I don't think he can hear us.
Weird.
So maybe we should just text.
we can hear each other, but you can't hear us. So
Right.
We are
no
going
wonder
to
it was
text.
just
I
me
don't know how to
talking the whole
sign that.
entire time.
We should do a sign.
I can't.
All right, I'm gonna reclaim my host. And so
It's funny.
yeah, guys, I don't know. I'm not sure on that, but you can text the question if you guys can do that. And Team Taylor, we'll work on that with everybody else. We'll stay on for a little longer. Yeah, so my computer might, oh wait, hang on a second. Oh. Boom.
Boom. Did you figure it out?
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, you know what, guys? My
All
monitor,
right.
my TV monitor was actually plugged into that one. And so the TV's, that's where it was
Nice
headed.
job. Nice job. All right.
Taylor, we got it. So go
All
ahead.
right. Good job.
That's funny.
So our question.
Yeah, so thank you for having us as guests today. We appreciate it. Lots of good information. You were talking about AVID, and we've had a big AVID week. I was just wondering, in your experience, you've been doing this a
That's
long
fine.
time. We got an AVID from the buyer's agent with the word mold written all over it.
All over it.
What would you do? Just ignore it? Or would you bring it up? Or would you try to educate them? Or what would you do?
Along with a honeydew list.
That's
And,
a mute.
Yeah, really?
and
It was
yeah.
a really not great transaction on her
well,
part.
the whole
but
house had been redone.
that's
too,
the
so-
part that we closed, but I'm just still wondering what would someone do? What would Eric do?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that the Avid is what it is. I mean, that agent wants to put that on there. That's going to be them. Obviously, that might offend your seller. That might, like, wait, we don't have mold. But if that's what they feel that they saw, but I would certainly, before I sent that to my seller, I'd say, look, guys, mold is a little bit of a strong word there because we're not mold experts. That's why I don't say like dry rot. I'll say like showing wear. One time I said, hey, house needs to be painted. And the agent called me out on it. She called me and says, you can't say that because,
You're not a painter, right?
yeah, I'm not a painter. So I just say siding looks wear, showing wear, or screen has a rip, or showing wear.
Right.
So showing wear is like my favorite thing to put in an Avid. So
Or mark.
literally
right?
what I would have called them and said, I know you put mold on there, and can you please define that a little bit more of what you're talking about? Because we're not mold experts, but I'm a little concerned if I send it to my seller, they'll freak out. But again, we can't steer them from not putting something on there. So it really technically it's their right to put whatever they want to put
Okay.
on there. And we just need to let our seller know. And I would, since you caught that, I would let them know, say, hey, I just want you to know this kind of looks like a honeydew list, and they'll get mad. So you want to set that up really fast and say, I might even meet with them, or even if they're close, and say, guys, this is just their personal opinion. They are not a mold expert. They should not have put mold on here, but the buyer's already signed it and already acknowledged it. So, that's just where we're at. I'm just letting you know that it's not going to come back to you and say that you have to fix something or clean mold or anything of that nature.
Cool. Yeah. We were like, it's a newer agent. We were like, should we be helpful? But they don't seem like